This is the last part I want to tackle here on why they keep manufacturing these pandemics. And perhaps this is the worst of the reasons. We've heard about control, we've heard about making money, but I think the worst is there's an ongoing depopulation agenda. They have denied that, but from their own mouths and from evidence on ground, we are seeing a different issue or scenario play out, and from various experts at least. Um, One, we noticed that I want to pick it up from when they told us during the COVID, uh, pandemic. They told us, safe and effective, safe and effective, and we at least have interacted with what has happened. At first, they used to call these things anecdotal. You remember the student of Bositema who passed on. That's anecdotal evidence. Like, no, that's we know you. Some people and their arguments, they got taken AstraZeneca and then after suffered headaches and I think a couple of days later she passed on and no, that's anecdotal. We heard about is it John, the student, who passed on also after, Minister of Health, personnel had taken over their school and immunized students, how the kids suffered mouth organ failure and passed on. I think it was a couple of days later. We saw those. We saw people who talked about various things that they suffered. You saw Nicki Minaj talking about a friend to the cousin who got important. But while you want to look at those all as anecdotal and everything that we saw on the internet as anecdotal, we have to notice that there's actually some bit of data. And people who usually argue that that's anecdotal, they are again very, very, very skeptical when you told them to, okay, now can you do research around the effects that the vaccine caused? No, they don't want to do any research in that regard. But here is a report I looked at here of the vaccine adverse effects report. This was the US by November 3rd, 2023. Over 1.6 million reports, people had reported cases of effects that they had suffered after taking the COVID jabs. And just to pick up a bit, there were 36,726 deaths by November 3rd, 2023. That's, I think, 2 years later after the immunization had kicked off. 36,723 people had passed on. And then there are people who suffered, who needed urgent care. Those who needed urgent care, we looked at that. Those were about 153,000 over. Okay. And those that had visits to the doctors had various complications. Those were over 240,000 cases. And there are those that were permanently disabled, 68,819. 68,819 permanently disabled. Those that suffered myocarditis, those are blood clots, 27,832. Those that suffered heart attacks, 21,155. Meningitis, anyway, it goes on and on and on. But the effect of these jabs was devastating. And the fact that no one wants to carry out significant report, all these entities, all health organizations, the governments, none of them wants to touch that, speaks volumes about the intentions of these people. Now, whether we want to deny the data is here, you have an anecdote. I've had various stories. But while we may want to categorize those as anecdotal, there's data here. And why they remain anecdotal is because even the media is usually not interested in running such stories because they go counter to the campaign that they themselves drove. The media is always at the fore of driving this pandemic. That's why you're hearing Ebola, 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 Ebola. And when there are only a couple of cases in Eastern Congo, but it's having global attention. It doesn't have global attention without the media backing. And now if it has the media backing, like even COVID did, To say now, act or perish. Remember that fear mongering. Yeah, act or perish or what? Yeah. And then you drive it like that, and then you find out, if you didn't know anyway, and find out that the thing that you pushed people into to get vaccinated actually had such devastating effects. What are you bound to do? Unfortunately, no one issues any apology. They just move on to the next pandemic and then push people to again go for these kind of vaccinations. But again, you don't have to take my word for that. There have been numerous experts that have also come up to offer their voices. This was Dr. Home Ngare, I think Ngare, from Kenya, who was warning President Museveni against, over-trusting the World Health Organization. He was here at I think State House. So he said that there was a facility regulating neonatal tetanus vaccine that was introduced in Kenya in 2013. But quickly they noticed that there was an increase in that it had an element in it, whatever they call them, elements or whatever things they put in the vaccines. It was laced with an element that affected people's fertility, especially the girls. Of course, the girl, that it was laced with an element that affected girls' fertility. And so they started to notice an increase in infertility cases among young couples. And then couples started to lose some were losing 3 to 4 pregnancies before they could carry any pregnancy to term. Or this doctor said this was traced back to this neonatal tetanus vaccine that was in Kenya in 2013. And he warned our president that we cannot afford to trust the World Health Organization anymore. Either it has gone off track or perhaps those were its intentions from the start. That was his warning. But I want you to have a look at this clip.
We cannot afford to trust WHO anymore, Your Excellency. And I'll just mention a few things that have caused great concern to us. In 2014, 2015, WHO brought tetanus eradication campaign in our country. It was a campaign to eradicate neonatal tetanus, babies who are born who eventually get tetanus. And the vaccine that was used is a different type of a tetanus vaccine that is a fertility regulating vaccine, where they take tetanus and combine it with a hormone called human chorionic gonadotropin that supports pregnancy. And when you inject a woman with that vaccine, she produces antibodies against that hormone and therefore is rendered sterile. So we are noticing an increase in the number of infertility cases among young couples who you examine and they are normal but cannot get children, or couples who are losing 3, 4, 5 pregnancies before they can carry any pregnancy to term. We were able to expose this, and we have even published a paper that is available. And fortunately, in 2017, WHO said Kenya is now free of neonatal tetanus, and they left our country. But they developed this vaccine over a 20-year period of research from 1972 to 1992. And they used that vaccine in South America, and it is possible it has been used in many other African countries.
Yeah, but besides that doctor whom you referred first off, there have been other global doctors, so many, like this Asim Molotra. I think that he lost his dad after the COVID vaccine. I said that trust in doctors is at an all-time low. Medicine has been hijacked by big pharma. Big pharma, of course, those are the ones that manufacture the vaccines that seek to make a killing. So they keep pushing various medicines, perhaps not perhaps some with devastating effects, but they keep pushing them as safe and effective. So he said that medicine has been hijacked by big pharma. And of course, the Maloney, there have been Peter McClure, so many that have spoken up. There's this headline, end mass jabs and treat COVID like we do flu, ex-vaccine chief. So some have come out to speak up. There was Asmona Gold and Dr. Stella Emmanuel in the White Coat Summit, remember, in Washington, D.C., the ones who talked also against the standard operating procedures that were, followed during COVID. There was so much against them. There are doctors in UK who issued the Barrington, declaration denouncing the protocols that were being followed for in regard to COVID. They opted for other procedures, other measures, but they received, little voice, especially from the mainstream media, which was so intent at pushing the general narrative. Okay, but we shall end it at this. Usually, for me, the thing it goes back to us also. The way we consume certain of this news, we need to consume statistics, with perspective. If someone tells me that there are 130 cases of Ebola in Eastern Congo, I need to, consume such statistics with perspective. So if there are 130 cases, okay, how bad are those cases? Where are those cases? How fatal is it? How treatable is this? You know why? Because in life, that's how we respond to issues. Respond to issues given either the benefit I'm going to get or how bad it is. So if you tell me that, hey, the Ugandan roads have we have, fatal crashes, about 11 people down Ugandan roads, about 11, okay? And I look, oh, they're about 11, okay, and the majority of those are usually on borders. So then I have to consume that statistic, and okay, they're about 11, majority of them are on borders. So I have to make a decision. Should I continue to use borders, or I walk, or I take a taxi, or what do I do? Now I have to think through, because I have to consume that statistic of 11 people dying on our roads in perspective. If there are 11, how many are there? How bad is it? So you don't just consume that. Hey, what? 130 cases of Ebola in DRC Congo. Hey, now too far, too far now. What, we are dying? No, you can't consume a statistic like that. That's how, actually, for me, when this entire pandemic thing of COVID was starting, that's how I started to see holes in it. Initial stages. At first, I was hearing about this virus in Wuhan. I ignored it. Why? Because it was far off. It was in China. How is it affecting me here? You get, how is it affecting me here? So I brushed it off. But as it kept coming through my social feeds, I searched it out. I'm like, okay, really, what's it about? I realized, oh, it's in China. Okay, I knew that. And then the statistic that for me, woke me up when I read that actually 96%, that someone stood a 96% chance of surviving it when they got it. I'm like, if someone has a 96% chance of surviving a virus when they get it, so why all the noise? Why all the hula bug? Someone is lying to us. We should react according to the threat, but the threat and the reaction were disproportionate. They were so far apart. The threat, and later on, of course, as we found out, actually the survival rate was in the regions of 98% or 99 for some demographics. So, but you are locking down the world, you are destroying economies, you are stopping kids from going to school, for a virus that had a 99% chance of survival in certain demographics, 98 for others, and you are locking down the entire world for that. Let's go, but because people are fearful, because they said, oh, there's a case, there's another case there, there's another case there. We need to consume statistics with perspective. For example, I'll give you this. There's this epidemiologist with a master's in public health. It's called Nicholas Hauscher, who posted this on social. He said that for an American currently, they have a 1 in 1.5 billion chance of getting Ebola this year. An American, they have a 1 in a 1.5 billion chance of getting Ebola this year. He said actually an American today is more likely to be struck by lightning than catching Ebola. But you see, in America, travel, what Ebola. In America, they are there also talking about Ebola. Okay, so what's this about? So they feed us with statistics, but statistics that lack perspective. And that's not a mistake because they want to drive a certain narrative. They want to drive fear. How do you drive fear? Just tell someone, hey, there's an animal in your house, there's an animal in your house. If someone tells me there's an animal in my house, yes, okay, I'll take off, I'll stop a bit and don't get in. But the next step will be, which animal? If someone says it's a lion, I even run further. If someone says it's a cat, I can draw closer perhaps with what? With a club to counter this. If someone says it's a lizard or whatever, yeah, okay, so a frog, the animal, you say an animal, you mean it was a frog. But people don't have to put perspective to that. It's like someone just tells you that there's an animal in your house and you run. Run for dear life because the first image and how they're approaching it, you think it's a lion. And yet later on you realize, hey, you are all along. You are talking about this kitten here from the neighbor's place. But we are not approaching these things with that kind of reasoning. And I don't blame our people much because of the fear that is pumped up by the media. You get, and the who chief coming up there, breaking news, telling us to be careful, telling us to. That's all. I mean, that all plays on people. The people's side think that we are dying. But this, I want to end on a very, very positive note. I love the way our media center chief, Alan Kasuja, has handled this Ebola thing. It's putting perspective and reason to it. I love the way it's handling it. In Uganda, we are safe, we are what, and we haven't had any cases so far as of this recording. And that's how we should approach these things. Not through fear, alert, Ebola, alert. Alert what? What are you trying to drive at? Is it new here? How has it been handled in the past? Get what I'm saying? There's a lot of precedent to draw from, but people are not willing to look at that because they want to drive fear. Of course, also as some local people here, I think, benefit from that because there's a guy that said that it's very hard to make someone understand something when their own survival depends on them misunderstanding it. So some people may say Ebola, and then we get World Health funding or we get funding from wherever to fight this Ebola, and plus someone has some money to play with. So to get that money, they have to drive up the hysteria. That we are dying Ebola, we are containing Ebola, we are in a fight. Therefore, you need the funding because you are in a fight, and perhaps money flows in. You get. So such a person tell them that, hey, put perspective to this, they won't. But I love that at least for in so many years, I would say there's a voice of reason, putting a bit of perspective to what is happening. And that's the clip I'll leave you with today of the media center chief, Alan Kasuja, talking about the pandemic, offering good perspective to it. Thank you.
Uganda has a lot of experience dealing with Ebola. We have dealt with it over the years. We have some of the best minds in the world as far as dealing with Ebola is concerned. Right now, as we speak to you, nobody living in Uganda, no Ugandan has contracted Ebola. We've had 2 cases, both from the Democratic Republic of Congo, of medical tourists. Unfortunately, one died. He was sent back to the Congo. Another one is currently a patient undergoing treatment. Everybody who interacted with them has been identified and is in isolation being treated. We're encouraging you to go about your lives, but we're also saying be vigilant. Look out for the symptoms, temperature, diarrhea, those symptoms that we know. And if you see them, go to the health facility nearest to you. You shall get the help you need. If you catch Ebola early, you will survive. Uganda knows Ebola. Uganda knows how to deal with Ebola better than anybody else in the world.